BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gerhardt. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
We are all creatures of habit, and being able to create good habits, routines, and moments in life to where things go exactly the way that we plan them, that we want to execute them, and that consistence and persistence of doing so can lead to an opportunity of life changes, going after goals, a lot of the things that we've talked about on the BTB project. But in today's BTB short, what if things don't go as planned? What if there's a hiccup or something that happens in your life to where you're required to have to take a step back and figure out how to navigate it? And I recently came across a situation as a parent that I think would be good for us to talk through. As some of you know, my son is an avid distance runner. He runs cross country and track, getting into the tail end of his high school career, and he's been fortunate enough to do a lot of travel and run all over the country. And we just had a particular situation that I think is really telling, because my son is one of those types of athletes, human beings, that is a creature of habit. He likes to have his workout routine at a certain time. He likes to lift weights at a certain time. When he wakes up, he eats typically the same type of breakfast, whether it's turkey bacon, protein waffles, eggs, trying to get high carbohydrate, high protein with the 65 plus miles he's running a week. But I share all that just to provide the context of what transpired at this particular track meet that we went to down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and see how we can figure out the best way to handle it. Because in my opinion, some of those situations that I see people that have habits and that habit pattern is interrupted by life and situations, what do you do? So my son was slated to run the mile. And so we drove down to Albuquerque and got there the day before. He loves getting there the day before so we can rest, get a shakeout run in. And then the following evening, he was to race the mile at 7:10 at night. So he gets to the race. He has his pre-race snack, which usually consists of a bagel and a banana 2 hours before the race. Well, as he's eating his last bite of his bagel and banana, he's told by his coach that his race is actually in the next 25 minutes instead of the next hour and 25 minutes. They had some cancellations of events that were before his, and it pushed the entirety of the track meet into about a 45-minute to an hour head start. And at that point, my son and his anxiety began to tap into, well, wait a second, I eat 2 hours before I run. So now he's thinking about how he ate right before he's about to go run and how it's going to feel in his stomach. He's literally creating a narrative in his mind of how his body is going to function in the race because his entire routine had changed. Thought about running slower. He thought about what it would feel like to have a rock sitting in his stomach that wouldn't have been there if the race director would have just had the times not only correct on the sheet, but to stick with those times, even if there was a change in the meet. So, as we walk through that, I want you to think about that moment in relation to moments that you've had in your life. You have your habit, you have your routine, and all of a sudden you're at work and your boss slaps a project down on the table and says this has to be done in the next 24 hours. But it's the end of the month and you had 2 or 3 other projects that you were just finalizing, and now you're trying to figure out how you're going to finish anything knowing that you have something new on your plate. What about that student? Were you going to class one day, you're absolutely crushing it. You have the ability to know all of the information in that math class or all of the facts and history that you need for your upcoming test. And all of a sudden, you get a pop quiz. You get a teacher that gives you just this random, out of the ordinary, left field assignment that makes you feel like, how am I going to be prepared for this? Goes into all of the uncertainties and self doubt. So, being able to understand first and foremost that there is going to be these types of situations in your life to where things aren't always going to go perfect. My son in that particular track race ended up having a performance that wasn't ideal. But I remember talking to him after that race, and he told me all of the things that went wrong, all of the things that didn't go the way that he wanted to. So, how could he have performed better? How could that person in the classroom be ready for that pop quiz? How could an athlete, if they're on a team and one of their team members gets injured and they're down a player, how do they overcome that and still be able to perform? Sometimes we get caught up in fighting change and that we put off actually dealing with the change, or we go into a state of anxiety, like I mentioned. But denial can be a powerful force. And in some cases, it protects us in many ways. But being able to step outside of it and saying to yourself, things are changing. These types of changes are happening in the world all the time. And that's okay. Being able to come to an agreement that things are going to change and it's going to be okay is always going to be step one in the prerequisite to know how to pivot. Again, pivot is something that I've used a lot as a tennis coach, but it's a basketball term. When you're playing defense or offense, let's say you're dribbling the ball and all of a sudden you stop dribbling. At that point, according to the rules, you no longer can take a step. You have to have one foot that's planted. So on that foot that you're planted on, you have to pivot. You got to rock your body side to side with one foot on the ground the whole time to see if you can find a place to pass the ball to give to another player on your team that has the ability to dribble again. So how in our life are we able to pivot, to overcome the sudden changes? Being able to realize that even good change can cause stress. That's what's amazing. People that are in situations where heck, they just got a job promotion or they've become captain of their team or they got straight A's and they just received the honor roll as a student. We put this unnecessary stress on ourselves even when good change happens. You got to keep in mind that positive change can create not only the stress that we're talking about with not so positive change, but stress is just your body's way of reacting to situations in life. It's okay to feel stress, even when something good has happened. In fact, it's normal. If you've been in a situation where that stress is normal and a part of the reaction to pivoting and overcoming change in your life, would you approach it a little bit different? Yes, it's important to keep a regular schedule and find those times to have a routine and find those times to be structured and regimented because more often than not, we can maintain control of that. But also, as we're in that type of control, we can create a resiliency to where when we're throwing off our pedestal a little bit, we remember the consistency and the amount of work that we put in to be who we are today. Being able to exercise every morning or study every night gives us an anchor. It reminds us that we have some things that can still be the same, and it gives your brain a little bit of rest. It actually prepares your brain for those one off situations to handle the stress of change, to know how to pivot because of your consistent mindset. As we approach pivoting, you got to make sure that the habits that you're creating externally are also habits that you're creating internally. Are you doing your best to eat a clean diet? Are you doing your best to tap into positive affirmations, positive self talk, positive self care, alignment? And as you're putting on that armor per day, when you do have those one off situations to where you have to make a change, you rely on the consistency of maybe it's doing hard things every day. Maybe it's really hard for you to eat that clean diet when you're going out with your friends and they're all eating pizza. Or maybe you don't want to do that workout that you normally do every morning because you're exhausted from the night before, but you do it anyways because that's the consistency that you need. See, in order to know how to pivot and handle change in your life, your ability to be consistent galvanizes you for those difficult changes. See, a lot of these different topics cross over as we talk through them in these BTB shorts. I recently had done a BTB short on setting big goals, setting massive goals, that thinking too small can actually create little results, but thinking big can create extraordinary moments in our life. But in order to have that type of mindset, you're going to have to understand that you're going to face some challenges. You're going to face some change. You're going to face some uncertainty. And are you willing to take that basketball and pivot and keep moving and not be isolated mentally into what I call the stinking thinking of thinking about the worst case scenario because of that change instead of falling into the trust of your patterns every day? As we are creatures of habit, we can create a framework of protection of being derailed by difficult changes. Pivoting helps protect us from stopping when things get tough, from self doubt when things don't go our way. And you got to be able to get proactive with this. Remember, being proactive means to take charge and working preventatively. This means you figure out what steps you need to take before something happens. And that's the conversation I had with my son after the race, knowing that these track meets not always run on the schedule that the meet says. So what can he do with his diet in that moment? Does he still eat 2 hours before every race? Or maybe he takes that same meal and he cuts it in half a bagel, half a banana, 2 hours before. And if an hour before the race, it looks like he's going to go on time, you eat the remaining part of that meal. If you end up having to go on a little bit earlier, yes, you've only eaten half the bagel and half the banana, but you have enough in your system to still have fuel. And you don't have enough in your system to where it's not going to give you a stomach ache in the middle of the race. That's being proactive. But being reactive is exactly how he responded to the situation. You want something that has happened, and then you take action. Being proactive means you make an appointment with your doctor for a physical because you know something stressful is coming up and you want to make sure that you're in good health to handle it. How often are you having those self assessing moments to make sure you can handle the change, the adversity, the difficult circumstance? Remember, pivoting, you keep one foot on the ground. You have to be grounded. You got to be trusting in who you are and what you've done and what you can become. That's the self belief. Nobody can pivot with 2 feet off the ground. As you have these wins yourself, write down the positives that have come from how you handle those changes. When you have a pivot moment where you're successful, celebrate it. We are so easily infatuated with our negativity and our mistakes and our shortcomings. We put so much energy towards those. I see it in tennis. Someone hits a bad shot and they get frustrated because they missed the ball, or smashing rackets when they're losing to an opponent that they know they should be beating. But what if you hit a good shot? What if you have a great point, a great game, a great set? Are you pumping yourself up? Let's go. Let's do this. Those types of moments are building blocks to a house of being able to pivot no matter what the circumstances are. When it does come to those moments that just stink, where it's just out of the blue and you're like, you got to be kidding me. How do these things happen? It's okay to vent. It's okay to talk through it and talk it out. Because if you hold that on the inside, now that change or difficult circumstance or shortcoming or thing that didn't go your way, now it festers inside of you and can trickle to other aspects of your life. Don't let that be something that derails you from other things. Talk about it. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my mentor saying, Coleman, when things don't go your way in life, it's okay to vent. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself, but give yourself 24 hours. You have the right to wipe your sorrows away, go eat a tub of ice cream or vent. But after that 24 hours, it's over. Let it go. Let it be something that doesn't put you in a place of derailing all of the amazing things that you can do in your life. Remember, pivoting, you're still moving, but you're grounded in a belief system that allows you to overcome any change, any sudden adjustment that you have to adapt to. Adaptation is critical for us to go after our goals and dreams in our life. How we think about ourselves, how we talk about ourselves, knowing what we've overcome, knowing the positive nature of some of the negative circumstances in our life, finding the silver lining, framing it to make it something extraordinary. That's how we change our lives. Listen, navigating change and adverse circumstances requires resilience, requires adaptability, and self-care. By acknowledging change and seeking support, don't do it on your own. Do it with others. Have that support system. Have your parents, have your teammates, whatever it may be. Taking proactive steps, as I mentioned, you can effectively pivot in the face of adversity. You can emerge stronger in your life on the other side of that adversity. Be kind to yourself. I absolutely hated when people used to call me Big Teddy Bear, BTB. I wasn't very kind to myself. I thought I was that big teddy bear, and I was always just going to be that big, fat, funny guy. But then I took that BTB and I made it into a positive. What are you built to be? The question I ask everybody that I coach, everybody that I help mentor, what are you built to become? I've done a lot of crazy, awesome things in my life, but the best fruit ever is pivoting, overcoming, and allowing others to overcome those same challenges, those same adverse moments. It's the art of duplication. As I do it, as you do it, as we do it, that's the community piece. And we can all pivot in life, no matter the circumstances, to do great things and to be extraordinary. If this BTB short was something that inspired you, if you're ready to pivot and get after it, get back to that routine, don't have that adversity shake you up, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the BTB Project. Better yet, send this episode to a family member, friend, or colleague. Tell them why it impacted you. Tell them how this can help them learn to pivot. And let's just be master pivoters in life. No matter the circumstances, we're going to get through this together. And I'm proud of each and every one of you. Thanks for checking out today's episode. And until next time, take care.